Greetings. You are now tuned into the Vault. Trust Christian, own nothing, control everything. Really excited about the episode today. Just very thankful that we're able to bring another episode to you. Today is going to be about the biggest mistake people make in setting up a trust. I think that this is an important topic to talk about. So, definitely excited and looking forward to continuously bringing basically trust knowledge and bringing things to the light. I actually got a chance to go into a law library today. Was really excited about the information that's still in the law. I encourage you to go into the law library. It's a untapped resource in most communities, but still just a great environment to develop your trust knowledge on your own. And so I look forward to going over that information today. Just some things that I have seen, we've seen at the Vault, I should say, is individuals that they don't have the proper education. Greetings, Latia, for tuning in live. I will appreciate all you all for saying something into the chat. I will make it a point to, connect with you all in the chat. I appreciate the chat live. I appreciate the live listeners. Even if you're listening to replay this far, thank you. This is going to be an episode that's very precise about, really, it should be the biggest mistakes, but I want to say the biggest one, and specifically the biggest one. And so, today, just going to be making a point to bring that content. So let's go ahead and get into it. The biggest mistake people make in setting up a trust, in my grand or the Vault's opinion, is simply that people are. It's over 80 different types of trust, ladies and gentlemen. There's many different types of trust, and I'm not going to name any of them because when you guys are particularly dealing with public agencies such as the IRS, there's not many names for a lot of the entities, but there's a specific structure that it has to have. And that's something that I love about when you contact the IRS. They tell you it's not necessarily always just the name of it because they don't acknowledge a lot of names. That you can go to their website and look at abusive trust and see that a lot of terms don't even apply anymore that people may use out there. And I think that that's very important for you to do in your research. So the biggest mistake that we see outside of picking the 80 is people don't pick a consultant. They don't come to places like the Vault and make it a point to figure out what are some of the different ones and distinguish themselves and be in compliance with the agencies and things of that nature, whether it's on the public or the private side. A lot of the public companies you see are controlled by private trust. And so the reason why they're private is because their contracts and things of that nature, and contract law is private. That's why I share with you all to go to the law library, because the contract that you need is inside of a law library. So the biggest mistake people make in setting up a trust is the fact that individuals own the assets once the trust is created, whether that's in creating it. And that's one of the mistakes that, or the biggest mistake people make in setting up a trust, that they truly don't divest themselves of the ownership of it. Uh, because individuals don't do that, what happens is a lot of times individuals get caught up on crimes, quote unquote. Specifically, you can see that in the Trump administration, where individuals uh, get prosecuted for self-dealing. And so I just want to make you all aware of, it's not the mistake of self-dealing, ladies and gentlemen. It all stems from the beginning, which is the cause, which is they set up the trust themselves. Individuals set up trust themselves. I've talked to attorneys before, and they've shared with me that yes, my clients don't want to divest themselves of the assets. And so when you look into that perspective, that once again makes you want to believe and know, well, what type of trust are these individuals using? Because the biggest mistake in setting up a trust possibly could be is that people don't divest themselves of ownership. You say, well, how critical is ownership? Trust Christian, own nothing, control everything. The Vault says that when if it's own nothing, control everything, why do you still have partial ownership rights? And so in turn, what happens is taxes chase title. If you have any type of interest or ownership of something, you have a title towards something. And for that reason, it's almost like a position of beneficiary. I don't completely say that, but I definitely say, when you are benefiting from something, you're a beneficiary. It's quite simple. And so what I say is, say, listen to that and understand that, okay, if people are not, the biggest mistake people make in setting up a trust is the fact that they don't divest themselves of the assets, then it would be incumbent upon you to look into means of how to divest yourself. Now, is it bad to do that? No. The lawyer that I was talking to at the time didn't say that it was bad. He just mentioned that the clientele don't want to divest themselves of the assets. So you have to ask yourself, is that something that you don't want to do? Because if you still own something, you can be taxed for it. And once again, this is the vault. Own nothing, control everything. So if you own something, then that means that you can be liable for it. That's the whole purpose, is giving up ownership and be able to be in control of assets. Trustees are in control of assets. Your banks, your institutions are controlled by trustees. Colleges are controlled by trustees. These are individuals that are not in a position of ownership, but they are in a position of control. Banks, well, a lot of entities are running through trust, which make individuals trustees. Greeting, Angela Adams. Peace, Yah Glenn Yah. So once again, the biggest mistake people make is setting up a trust debt. Or at the vault, we just say that it's because they don't own, they keep owning things. So in turn, you have liability, and in turn, you got to report. It's just the facts. That's dealing with, public and personal assets. They're still having to report those things. That's something that at the vault we make sure that education is for individuals to not make one of the biggest mistake people make in setting up a trust. And that's a fact, ladies and gentlemen. So I really wanted to share this. I thought this was a definitely something that I see. And when I say that, we could go so much deeper because I talked to and share with the trustees that, possessive language such as I and things of that nature, owning assets is a big deal when you start speaking in that manner of, oh, I have this and I have that and this is mine and these possessive terms I have. And, it's a way in which to communicate, because when you communicate with specific ways, specifically about, communicating with the possessives, it always turns into a possession situation. Possession is 9 tenths of the law. So sometimes even entering into a position of possession puts you in what position are you in, and that's very, very critical. Thank you, Jelani, for tuning in live. It definitely makes you bear what is the purpose of being in ownership or legal ownership role. Why? Because you're not giving up ownership. See, there's two types of positions in the contracts. Correct? Is legal and then equitable. Equitable is actually possession, which is the asset itself, the physical asset, equity. The tangible thing that we're supposed to be able to put inside of a wheelbarrow when we're around. Wheel around. Um, and so when we look at that, let's look at that. Because now individuals are saying, hey, we're not just in an equitable position, we're in a legal position, so it's called complete liability. And that's something that I just look into. Thanks, JT, for tuning in live. That's something I look into. I share with you all to go find out, about ownership and things about setting it up, because if you're setting up the trust, or the trust is being set up and some things are being done where you're considered to be the settlor, when you all think about that, setting it up means you're the settlor, and in turn, or the settler, and in turn that puts you in a position of partial liability. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a very simple, it's a revocable or irrevocable trust. So if individuals are setting up a revocable trust, you're not setting up irrevocable. And in turn, that's how things happen, is are you setting up or things being set up where you're not in a position, and sometimes liability is critical, specifically to the settler and the beneficiary. And I talk to, make it a point to do my best to stay into these and things of that nature. And even coming from a position of trusteeship, you still want to be in a position of what they call limited liability, but you still are the responsible party over those entities. And I think that, always hearing the senior trustees teach about that, talk about that, I think that it's critical to understand that. And I think it's critical. I think it's critical to continuously do your studies on those type of things because it does make you think, ladies and gentlemen, very heavily. And I really encourage you all to think about that. I know that at the Vault we do put out some very contrarian ideas about trust, but we're always fans of nothing control everything. And so the biggest mistake people make in setting up a trust is that is they're still owning assets. And if what is the purpose of the trust being a separate, distinct legal person if it's not in a position of where you still have revisionary rights and things of that nature? It's just an interesting position to hear people have themselves in. But at the Vault, the publication is to make sure that the biggest mistake people make in setting up a trust that they really have not divested themselves of assets, and that's critical when we hear a lot of individuals come to the Vault and they are in a position of own something and they're still trying to control it. It's interesting. That is almost, something that's very interesting for individuals to look at. Definitely say, hey, how is it that that's the case where we're not giving a true ownership where that's not the goal. The goal is to own nothing, control everything. From the Vault's perspective, trust Christian, own nothing, control everything, and it's very critical to move in that fashion. So, it's interesting to see once again ownership goes to title. So, why would you want to be considered the owner if you're going to be considered taxable or even lawsuit liable? Somebody can sue any individual out of assets, but if you don't own it, how can someone sue you for it? It's always interesting the position to hear that because owning nothing, control everything is the way we start out in life. We're really stewards, and trustees are the highest level of stewardship, and that's what we really encourage individuals to learn is trustee training, and so that's a big critical point right there that we wanted to point out today is the biggest mistake people said, because how can you go from being a settler to the trustee? That means immediately it's a revocable trust, and in turn you haven't given up ownership. You have a third party entity now something on your behalf, and it's just interesting to see that that's not true trusteeship. That's just not something that here at the Vault that we practice, especially when we say own nothing, control everything. So I really don't want to be too reiterative of things and points, but those points are critical nonetheless when it comes to ownership. And so I'm open to any questions that we have in the chat right now. I appreciate you all for tuning in live, and as well anyone in the replay that want to contact us at christian@trustchristian.com. You all can move forward in that fashion as well. And so just wanted to reach out to everyone live on the chat and say thank you all for tuning in live. And if there's anyone else that wanted to connect with us, feel free once again to connect with us. Just wanted to say hi to everyone in the chat. And I just want to thank everyone for tuning in live or listening to replay. It sounds like we don't have any questions through the chat, or looks like any questions through the chat. So I just appreciate you all for listening to this, because this is something that we just wanted to throw out there as a topic to you all that listen to the Vault and want to maintain your subscribership. We really make it a point to share valuable content that, when you're even out there on your trust journeys, going to the law library, there's an advocate of individuals owning nothing, controlling everything to grow their wealth and grow wealth in general. And that's where all positions are held is in trust. And so we just, it says in God we trust, and it's about trust. And we just appreciate everyone for tuning in live or listening to replay. So thank you all. Peace and blessings. Have a great one.